Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Deku. I mean, like, alright, don't get me wrong. The reaction has been absolutely fantastic, right? And the people love the game, but I'm telling you, man, there's so many people who think we're literally the exact same person. Like, okay, some people actually understand that you are the inspiration, the OG even, and I've never denied that. But I swear to God, there are so many comments where I genuinely think they have no fucking idea whether or not we're the same character. And at this point, it's like, okay, fine. I decide to take my hat off one time, and now your entire takeaway from the video is just, oh, is this Deku? Like, brother, is that all you have to say? Oh shit, the video started. Okay, I gotta get back on the grind, so see you, Deku. Oh, and take it easy on those street tears, am I right? Okay, have a good one, my man. Alright, let me just get over there. Okay. Yeah, I lied, it's been like a month. Hello again. Man, what a talent show, am I right? That shit was awesome. I was actually there for all of it, you know, start to finish. And if I were to describe how that final stream felt, you know, aside from our soul-crushing screams into the void every time we had to take someone who genuinely fucking cooked out back to look at the flowers, it would probably be this image. And to top it all off, holy shit, I won, I can't believe it, oh my god! But by the time this video comes out, it would have been like, I don't know, like a month or something. So, we're not here to take a victory lap or anything. We're here to fulfill the wish of like everyone who saw my entry and liked it. And by everyone, I mean the 7,000 people in front of my house admiring the cool garden gnome I put on my lawn, and also the 500 people that decided to invite themselves in afterwards. I'm here to lock in for you, and we are going to continue, you know, making this game. So, to start us off, this devlog will be more like housekeeping, you know, taking a moment to get everything situated, establishing what we have, and answering any questions and concerns I've gotten since posting. You know, like laying the foundation. For that last bit, there is one aspect of this game that I repeatedly see people getting antsy about, and by repeatedly, I mean like, I don't know, like 5 people. Fun fact, way before this, I actually did my first dev stream on Twitch, where I went over all the cards I already designed, explained my thought process and some of the strategies I had in mind, and then went through and started making our first round of changes, you know. I'd totally be using that footage in this video, but turns out some dumbass fucked up the audio settings and the entire VOD is blown out and crusty, and at first I thought I was hearing just the slimiest mouth sounds, but I later remembered that I was fidgeting with these rings the entire time, and it turns out the mic picked it up, and it was not doing me any favors. But anyway, back to that bit about concerns. Damn, y'all really don't like dice. And let me tell you, I hear you, okay? I get it. Us gamers are legally obligated to absolutely despise the concept of luck. But I need you to hear me out on this, okay? So here we go, I'm holding your hands, I'm looking longingly into your eyes as I make my case, okay? First off, TCGs have luck baked into their very concept already, alright? Different games have different approaches for how to address this, whether they want to minimize it or capitalize on it. We're kind of doing both. I'd like to have an even mix. And if I may go out on a limb here, the reason you, yes you, don't like the coin flipping in Pokemon is because most of the moves are all or nothing, and nothing feels bad. I know this is going to sound crazy, but dice are a lot more balanced than you might think they are. At least for our purposes, since we're not dealing with creatures or life totals or anything like that. The 3 characters on your team are all you get. Once they're out, you're done. So we need as much variance and unpredictability as we can get so matches aren't like 30 seconds long. But that doesn't mean we can't tip the scales a bit. That's actually the entire point. Alright, so you're gonna have to bear with me here because I'm about to start yapping professionally, okay? The reason I've made damage in this game based on rolling dice and multiplying by 10 is so that I can use Pokemon as a framework for damage numbers and health pools. In case you didn't know, Pokemon TCG, like the real life one, the paper one, the damage is in factors of 10 so you can keep track of health using damage counters. That way, when a Pokemon evolves, you just keep the same number of counters instead of needing to do math because of, you know, proportions and shit. And I'm thinking we do the same thing with ring counters, or, you know, now I'm thinking the ring counters are a bunch of like different values. We're talking like some full-on Monopoly money shit, alright? On top of that, there are so many ways we can interact with this through the cards. Let me introduce you to a little thing called a dice calculator. So, if we're just rolling one dice, then we have an equal chance of rolling on any one side, right? But if we add a second, now things start getting interesting. Let me break it down for you. So we're going to keep things simple and use six-sided dice, because, you know, everyone knows what a six-sided dice looks like, right? Now, I'm not a math guy by any stretch of the imagination, but after, you know, experimenting with this a little bit and looking for trends and stuff, what I noticed is the minimum damage will go up incrementally, right? One by one. The average will go up minimally by about 3 or 4, maybe 5. And the maximum will go up exponentially, like double or triple or quadruple. But adding dice isn't all we can do. We can also change the dice size. We can add flat bonuses to the roll. We can add in dice of different sizes. We can even finagle with the multiplier like some full-on Balatro shit if we wanted to. In fact, that's literally what the Shadow card does. And Support Sonic just starts out like that, brother. And my last argument is just vibes. Why wouldn't a Sonic card game do something as extra and involved as using dice for damage instead of just putting a flat number on the card for no other reason than an addiction to style? Like, this is the series where the party game had you drawing cards instead of rolling dice, the racing game about to come out has you making perk loadouts, and the racing game that we all want to come back had you managing gas! With all this in mind, I hope the vision is making itself clear. The game isn't about leaving everything up to luck. The game is about, at least to me, is about playing cards and taking advantage of combos and synergies to give you the best possible fighting chance, to swing the odds as far in your favor as it can get, but with the ever-present risk of failure to keep things interesting and unpredictable. So in other words, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, brother, I'm gonna keep it a buck and give it to you straight. It's a game of momentum. So yeah, I just really like dice. I like min-maxing the numbers, and I like the clicky-clacky sound they make in my hand before I toss them onto the table. I've come up with a name for the game, by the way. I decided Team Sonic Shuffle was a perfect mix between Team Sonic Battle, you know, since that was the name I was using before, while also preserving one of the funniest bits in that video. Alright, as an excuse to start yapping competitively and also to see who's here to match my freak or who's just here for the funny editing, I'm now going to go through the original PDF collection and just break down all the cards that I designed, okay? Just to give you an idea of where my head was at and what I think the strategy might be here, you know, because I literally promised I'd do that in the video. Alright, let's get into this. Alright, so here we are. For those of you who want to like actually find the PDF with all the cards in them, here's my card. All right, my site. You can find the link in my the bio, the YouTube bio, the bio. You can find the link in the bio. All right, and when you're here, you know, aside from like all the cool art that I do, this little icon right here, the 2 boxes next to the Twitch logo, this takes you to the PDF. It's a Google Drive link. All right, I'm gonna speed run through these now. I'm improvising. There's no script. All right, so first we got the Sonic card, okay, and I'm thinking the philosophy behind the Sonic card designs is that he's on the lower end of ring counts in any role that he's in, and that's to balance out the dice mechanic, because a lot of the Sonic cards that I have you like stacking dice because like momentum or something. He's average in action point cost, but a lot of the action point costs for character cards are going to be on the low end because that's literally the entire point of the game. A lot of the pricey cards are just going to be the cards you play during the game and not the characters. Alright, so he does low damage. Granted, he's got the Blitz and Double Strike going, right? He can immediately do damage after being tagged in, that's what Blitz is. And then Double Strike, he attacks first and then he attacks normally. Alright, so the highest damage we're getting out of this, as is like 80, right? So his first ability, Won't Stop Just Go, that's a song reference to Green Forest. Every additional card you draw on your turn, Sonic gets a D4, alright? So he's gonna be stacking damage, alright? And then Redline Peel Out, that's his team ability. Every character card is gonna have a regular ability and a team ability. Redline Peel Out is when you use a team blast, you draw a number of cards on your next turn based on how many dice you roll for damage during that team blast. And if Sonic is the leader, then that attack uses D6s. He becomes a nuke. I say this in the caption of the original video. If we get to playtest for this ability might become a problem, but I'm not gonna think about that right now. And let me tell you, I really love the name for this, Redline Peel Out, alright? For those of you who don't know, Redline refers to the maximum like RPM an engine can run before you start like risking damage. So it is quite literally the Sonic equivalent of saying like a limit break. It's perfect. And then Peel Out, I mean, you know what the Peel Out means, we're all Sonic fans here. So he is literally like, he's charging up for his next ability, but that charge up is putting him at risk because you have to keep Sonic on the field as he's leader, which opens him up to damage. And because he's on the lower end of ring counts, that's a risk. Anyway, moving on. Now we got Knuckles. Alright, I'm thinking Knuckles is average ring count for a defender type. And I think, so far, defenders have been the most expensive. I do wonder if that's ever going to change. There's an exception later on that you probably know about. Alright, now he does a lot of damage. The vision behind Knuckles is that he's a defender, but he can also he is a defender that plays like a striker. Alright, he's got second wind. Let me tell you what second wind does. When you're reduced to 0 rings, because remember, we're running this like it's actual rings and not like a health count. So you have to get them to 0, and then you gotta hit them again in order to take them out. So when you get to 0 rings, the damage dice for the attack changes based on the size listed next to the term. And overpowered means that Knuckles doesn't give a shit about the ring invincibility rule. The ability names for Knuckles, they're not references to anything. I don't really know what references you can make that also sound like defender ability names. Now the deal with Knuckles is that if he's tagged out and your leader takes a bunch of damage, you can tag him in and then have him take the damage. And if he gets to 0 rings this way, you reflect that damage onto the attacker. And then his team ability, he puts a defensive buff around 2 team members of your choice. And if he's leader, that extends to the whole team. Alright, moving on, Tails. This guy is low in the ring counts. He might get one shot. Knuckles can one-shot him. He's really cheap on the action point cost. He's very low damage. But here's what he does. Here's the vibe I'm going for with support cards. So his bench size, your bench size increases to 6. Usually it's 5, you get an extra slot. And then item and partner cards cost 1 less action point to play. Then you have the real ability. When he's tagged out, you give the person coming in a buff to either damage or rings, right? Now the team ability, Believe in Yourself, this was supposed to be a reference to his theme. You know, his theme is like Believe in Myself. And I thought it'd be cute to spin that. You know, Tails is cheering you on. You know, he's like, Believe in Yourself. But this is actually a Sonic CD song, so I need to change this. Now here's something wacky that Tails does, okay? When you use a Team Blast, he grants +1 damage dice of the same size for every item and partner card you play on that turn, which synergizes really well with Sonic. So much so that I'm kind of worried that it'll become like a mandatory like synergy. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Now, regardless of if Tails is the leader, you gain +1 draw for the rest of the game. This effect can stack. That's big, all right? Not to be confused with big. But you like regardless of if he's a leader or not. And I think that's pretty cool. All right, now we're gonna move on to Shadow. As you can see, he has significantly more rings than Sonic. This is what I was talking about. Same average AP cost. He does. This is a little bit below average damage. I would consider average like damage size to be D8s. And here's what Shadow can do, alright? Here's what Flash. Flash means that you can tag in a character at any time, as if it were like an instant, or in this game it's an action. But they can't attack. You can only just tag them in, you can tag them in right before damage is dealt, and have the new character take that damage. But Shadow is the exception here. You see, Shadow can attack even after being tagged in with Flash. But then the real ability is whenever you play an action card, you can pay extra to have Shadow deal damage to any target, and it doesn't count as an attack. And then this one, I'm going to spoil the surprise for you. I am recording this after I make all the changes. This ultimate is completely this is reworked. I'm not even going to read it. Alright, so now we have Big. Here's the deal with Big. I wanted him to be the Snorlax card. So this guy's got 900 rings. I have no idea how that's going to work in actual gameplay. This is one of those things that need to be play tested. A lot of the ring counts need to be tested. He's got a whopping entire turn's worth of action points. Alright? And for damage, 2d20. And then he also has Splash. Splash damage is when you attack, you also deal splash damage to the 2 other team members that aren't currently tagged in. And Sluggish, originally this was like you have to pay extra to get him to attack, but now it's more like a saving throw in a TTRPG. You know, you roll a d20, you get above a 10, big attacks. Now the abilities here, these weren't changed at all. I think I nailed it with this one, at least before I do the playtest and see that everything is fucked. So the first ability we got is A Man and His Frog. I knew I needed Froggy to be a part of this. As long as a partner card named Froggy is on the bench, Big can attack as if he didn't have Sluggish. If Froggy is removed from play for any reason, Froggy is instead shuffled back into the deck. This is just perfect. You're constantly looking for Froggy, and then you have Froggy, and then Froggy leaves again, and then you have to find Froggy again. And then we have Humble Fisherman. When you use a Team Blast, choose one of the following card types. Draw from your deck until you find a card of the chosen type and put the rest at the bottom in any order. That's like a magic thing. I end up removing that part. But this is basically fishing. And if Big is the leader, you gain +2 draw for the rest of the game. It's just fishing. He helps you fish. Drawing from the deck is just fishing. That's all it is. So now we're getting wacky with the defender cards, okay? Originally, when I thought of these card roles and how certain characters can fit into different roles, my first example, what my mind immediately went to was Knuckles, because I can genuinely make an argument that Knuckles can fit into any of the 3 roles. But that would mean I have to do 3 completely new arts of Knuckles, and I didn't have that. But what I did have was Sonic cards already made. All right, so here we have a Sonic Defender card. The challenge here is how do we translate Sonic into a defender? Well, here's how we do it. Okay, he's extremely cheap. I feel like this is going to be almost unheard of for defender cards. All right. Now the lore behind this part specifically is the scene where he's getting the shit beaten out of him in Sonic and the Black Knight. This one right here, where he says, "I just gotta do what I've gotta do. That's all, you know." So we're trying to, what's the word? We're trying to embody that energy in this defender card. So this guy hits hard, 46 times 10. That can already one-shot some characters. Tails is done. Striker Sonic is probably done. All right, but it's only to the opposing leader. He can't attack any target. He has Flash. You already know what Flash does. I am not going to talk about parry. I'm going to save that for either the next section, or if I put that section before this. I actually don't remember what the order of these clips are. I'm not going to talk about parry. And then he has Second Wind. You see, the thing with Sir Sonic here, all right, is that you want him to take damage. You want him to get to 0 rings. Because his first ability, when reduced to 0 rings, he starts gaining rings each turn as long as he remains leader. And then he requires 2 instances of damage to be defeated. So he has 2 counts of ring invisibility. And then the team ability is where things start getting crazy. When you use that Team Blast, Sir Sonic grants +3 damage dice of the same size for every opposing team member remaining. If Sir Sonic is the leader, the size increases to D12. If Sir Sonic is the last remaining team member, until end of next turn, all damage received is reflected onto the attacker. I end up changing this, but the vision is that it's like there's an aspect of this that's not very team-oriented, but the vision here is that if he's the last remaining team member, then your opponent is immediately like, yo, you gotta take him out fast or you're done. Like, you're cooked. He's just gonna start one-shotting. Like, actually one-shotting. He might take out big immediately. So now, the moment he reaches 0 rings, now your opponent's on a timer. And I think that's a really interesting, like, playstyle, you know? It's probably not something that I would play. To use Magic as an example, because that's where a lot of my TCG experience comes from. I don't really play Black that much, because I don't like sacrificing my health. I just think it's really scary. And I'm not strong enough. But it would be unfair of me to deny people that sort of playstyle. So I'm thinking you can even use like abilities to target your own shit. You can just play a card to just deal the damage yourself to Sir Sonic. I think that'd be funny. And then we have the support Sonic. Now this one's a stretch. This one's a stretch, but I think I made it work. All right, so this is the lowest health out of all the Sonics. And I end up changing this damage number. It's 1d6 times 20, so I started playing around with the multiplier. To the opposing leader, he also can't attack any target. He has parry. I'm not going to talk about parry. And, I mean, you already know what First Strike means. These ability names are peak. Stillness in Motion, that's the name of the album for Sonic Frontiers. It's a global buff, which I think a lot of those support cards are going to do. They're going to give you like a buff in some aspect of the game. That non-character cards cost 1 less action point to play. Whenever you spend 3 or less action points to play a card or tag in a character, including Sonic, Sonic's attack gains +1d6. This is that, this is that theme I was talking about. I realize now that Sir Sonic doesn't have something like this, but I feel like a common theme throughout Sonic cards is gaining dice to simulate like momentum. And then Perfect Parry Revisited, because in Final Horizon, the special ability you get is a Perfect Parry, and Revisited, I'm here, Revisited. When you use a Team Blast, you gain action points on your next turn equal to the Team Blast's action point cost. If Sonic is the leader, you may treat your opponent's next Team Blast as an action targeting Sonic, regardless of what position Sonic is in. You can parry their next Team Blast. Again, I'm not going to explain what parry means yet, but there's the vision is sound, okay, I assure you. And now we have Fidel. Alright, ring count, he's somewhere between Sonic and Shadow. Again, the average AP cost. And he's got the 2 D8s that I was referencing earlier. He's got Blitz, he's got First Strike, he attacks the opposing leader, you know all that. Hype Train. Whenever you spend 3 or more action points to play an action or wisp card, Fidel can immediately make an attack without having to tag in. That's pretty good. It's free damage. And then my favorite ability name of this entire project, Call Me He the Way I'm Him. Whenever you use a Team Blast, you may treat it as playing an action card. Fidel can make an attack before or after the Team Blast, and the attack has double strike. Regardless of if Fidel is the leader, he gains +1d8 damage for the rest of the game. Now here's an interesting interaction that I thought of during that first stream, okay? If you have Fidel on your team, then no matter what, because the first part of the team ability always applies, no matter what, your Team Blast will be an action. And Team Blasts always target the opposing leader. You are attacking the current, enemy, right? Which means, if you're playing with Fidel, and the opponent has support Sonic, then he doesn't even need the second part of the team ability. Sonic can just parry that. Because as long as you have Fidel, every Team Blast you play becomes an action card. So I think, I don't want to say that that's, I don't want to say that support Sonic is an immediate, counter to Fidel. Maybe there can be some cards where you can, spin that around to your advantage. I don't know yet. But I think it's an interesting, we're already starting to see interactions with the different card designs, and that's what you'll love to see. Because, the complexity from card games come from the cards themselves, So this is just proof that I'm cooking something. I think I want to believe that. All right, moving on. Here's that card I made for the birthday stream. Okay, now we're moving on to the basic cards. Okay, I didn't elaborate on these too much in the original video. Everything from this point forward is just me like improvising, just coming up with stuff so that I could have like a bunch of cards to show at the end. So partner cards are absolutely going to change. Like all of these formats are gonna change a little bit. So we have the ring count. Partner cards have ring counts. They're like pseudo characters that you put on your bench, right? So immediately we have Sonic because I just had this art on standby. And I'm thinking that if you have a character on your team, you can't also have that character on your bench as a partner. I'm thinking we invoke those rules. So here we have like a watered down version of his like momentum like kind of thing, where whenever you play an item or action card, you may spend 1 action point. If you do, your next attack during combat gains plus 1d4 damage. You know, super basic. I think partner cards are going to be expensive because like it's like you pay the cost once and you just have them on your bench. But I also think if we're gonna keep this game like fun and interesting and have a point to having a 60 card deck, then stuff on your bench is probably gonna like the lifespan of a card on your bench is probably gonna be really short because you'll have a constant rotation. You know, opponents like taking out your cards, you're taking out their cards, you're just constantly cycling through different partners, items, what have you. Now we have improvised Joyride. I was really like trying to think of what kind of ability we could have for this art because I really like it. I'm a Sanemi fan. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. So this is an action card. Now that I actually have an idea of what kind of stage effects I would like, the 2 AP cost is diabolical. I'm going to have to raise that. But this one is simple. Until end of turn, all stage effects are doubled. I'm definitely... This is going to be real funny once you get to the end of the video and you hear some of the ideas that I have for stages. Alright, now we have Chaos Control. As of right now, I have different ideas for how to implement Chaos Control. Not only Chaos Control, but also just Chaos abilities in general. I feel like that could be like a genre of action card, or maybe even a card type itself. Just Chaos. But right now, it's 5 AP. Before damage is dealt this combat, tag in a character on your team as if they had flash. This is going to need playtesting because I don't know how powerful that ability can be, right? I need to actually see it in action before I can make a judgment on like, is this too OP or is this not like worth it, you know? I just assume that immediately being able to tag in a character is like a significant ability that probably warrants a high AP cost. But that's also where a lot of my experimental ideas are coming from. Like maybe there's a more powerful version that like you have to sacrifice a Chaos Emerald to play. I think that'd be interesting. Now I'm repurposing art. So we have Last Stand. This is an adaptation of Sir Sonic's ability. It's an action card. Until end of turn, target character gains plus 1d6 to their attack for each opposing character remaining and each allied character missing. So this is already strong, but if it's the last remaining character, it's like that's a huge buff. Next we have we have devious backshots. Real panel, by the way. It's just cropped really maliciously. It's an action card. During combat this turn, your leader can target any opposing characters or partners instead of the opposing leader. This is just giving them the ability to attack any target. My mind immediately just went to like, oh, you're going after the backline, because I'm a recovering League of Legends player. All right, so now we're getting to Wisps. So far, Wisps are my favorite like card design, aside from like the character cards, obviously. Wisps, like, they function like actions, so they're like instants. You know, you can play them at any point, even during the opponent's turn. But Wisps are different, okay? They function differently, and I'll explain how. You can only play 1 Wisp per turn cycle, and that's the only way I can think of to describe, like, if you play 1 during your turn, you can't also play 1 during the opponent's turn. You have to wait till your next turn to play 1. And I'm thinking that Wisps are going to be some of the most powerful cards in the game, or at least the most powerful card type that isn't like a character. And here's why. You see, Wisps have this little ability that all of them have. Originally, it was just going to be the White Wisp, but now it's a universal thing. This is what separates Wisps from actions. They have this little thing called Hyper Go On. Okay, if you've played Sonic Colors, you know what this is. This is like the energy that Wisps have that Eggman was trying to harness. And the vision behind Hyper Go On is that Wisps are like spells that you can heighten. You know, if you've played D&D or Pathfinder or what have you, you dump more resources into them and they get powerful. Like they can scale. So the White Wisp gives you boost gauge. How does this translate into a card game? Let me tell you. Until end of turn, you gain 1d4 action points. If at least 3 points were spent to play this card, it lasts until the start of your next turn instead. And Hyper Go On is, I'm probably going to flip these when I start making changes. You may choose to spend action points to play this card. For every point spent this way, boost gauge gains +1 to the roll. So this card is free, if you couldn't tell. And that's not a mistake, that's on purpose. You can choose to spend action points, so now you're making like a gamble. Kind of, not really. You're always making a profit, because, you know, every action point gives you +1, right? So you'll always get the action points back. You're only dumping resources into what your profit is, which I think might be a little, I don't know, we'll have to see in playtesting. But Wisps are supposed to be powerful, so maybe I'll just keep it as it is, you know. I think action point economy is going to be one of the most important things to balance as we move forward. Next we have Red. I love how this came out. I love how I draw the Wisps. So he's got Red Burst. You deal 3d6 times 10 damage to all characters and partners on the opposing team, but your leader also takes significantly less, but you still take damage at the same time. And that damage, all of this damage increases with Hyper Go On, which is you may spend extra action points to play this card. For every 2 points spent this way, Red Burst gains plus 1d6. A lot of them are going to alternate between like for every this many points, or just like every single point something goes up. Or if you spend at least this many points, you get this new bonus effect with the ability. So this is nice and simple. It's just burst damage. Lots of burst damage, but it also affects you at the same time, but significantly less, but it still affects you. Blue Q, okay? I have a long and nonsensical rant about Blue Q. I say rant, but it's positive, okay? And I'm going to explain that rant after I explain the card. So, Blue Q, if you don't know, you might think, oh, this ability is probably going to be something tanky. I originally thought that too, but since I played Sonic Colors, I know that Blue Cube kind of gets wacky with it. What it does in the game is that there's these blue rings, and when you use the cube, you turn those rings into platforms, and you can use the cube again to turn them back into rings. And if you collect the rings, then you won't have the platforms anymore. It's a swap ability. It is a swap platform ability. Okay, so how do we translate that into a card game? Let me tell you. Until end of combat this turn, swap both the ring count and attack damage between your leader and the opposing leader. This effect ends if your leader is tagged out. Damage taken by either leader remains afterwards. As it is right now, this is not very useful, because I've realized over time that, hey, this ability doesn't really make sense, because you'll only be damaging your leader. And the workaround for that was Hyper Go On, where you spend 1 extra action point to play this card, and then you can target any character on the opposing team. So I'm going to change this so that it's more useful, but what my original rant was is that this has the vibe of a card that, like, it's super situational, and casual players probably wouldn't, like, use it that much, but if it had, like, a hypothetical professional play, then this card would, like, be broken. Like, it's situational, but the ability is so, like out there, that it might even be banned. That's the vibe that it always gave me. As it is right now, obviously there's issues with it, but I think I fixed them as of recording this. At least I hope. Not that I'm trying to make that card. It's just the vibe that it always gave me. All right, I still have trauma from playing Rise in League of Legends, who has the exact same thing going on. Well, that's a rant for another day. Now we have Orange Rocket. This is a whopping 5 action points. Choose a single target among all characters, partners, and items in play. That target takes 8d6 times 10 damage at the start of combat on your next turn. You send the rocket up, and it comes back down, big single target damage. And if you spend 3 extra action points to play this card, the attack uses d8s. It's literally Fireball. it's just missing the AoE. It's literally just Fireball. Now we have Cyan, alright. Raw, World Farming. This one, you can choose 3 targets among all characters, partners, and items in play. Those targets take this much damage simultaneously. Each instance uses a new roll. I've changed this. Now, each instance uses the same roll. You just roll once. And this is to simulate, like, with laser you can target the crystals. So now you just target the enemies. And then for every 1 extra point you spend, you may choose an additional target. Now we have the Drill. This is kind of like Rocket, but there's a key difference. Okay? You deal 2d10 times 10 damage to the opposing leader. This damage ignores shield, defense effects, and ring invincibility. It literally drills through their defenses. And then for every 2 points spent this way, it does more damage. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, and I'm gonna be real with you, brother. I'm just going to gloss over the team blasts, because these were very last minute, and I like the ideas that I came up with, at least for how team blasts function, not the effects themselves. And it's gonna go through some changes. But what we have is I just took, like, the team blast from Sonic Heroes and just translated the 4 of them into cards. So we have Sonic Overdrive. So first we have the blast gauge. This is how I'm like limiting the number, or at the very least the frequency, of playing team blast cards. You may play this card only after all available characters on your team have tagged in at least once on the same turn. My assumption is that this is going to be extremely easy. Like I said in the caption on the video, basically free. I don't know if that's the case, but that's my assumption. And every team blast has a different requirement. That's how you fill the blast gauge. And then Sonic Overdrive, it's basically a stronger version of the Cyan Laser, because the description for this attack in, like, the wiki is that they're doing a light speed attack. That's why you attack all the enemies at once. That's what Sonic Overdrive is. So you just select 5 targets among all characters, partners, and items on the opposing team. Those targets take this much damage simultaneously. I think this one will still use a new roll for each instance, because it's not like for the laser, everything is happening so fast you can't react to it. But with Sonic Overdrive, theoretically, the reason this is important is because if you have cards that, like, oh, this happens when it takes damage, then for the laser, that has to wait until the laser has attacked all the targets. But for Sonic Overdrive, if you use this and you attack a card that has that effect, their effect will then go off, because we have, like, the stack from Magic. And then you move on to the next instances of damage. Now we have Chaos Inferno. This one is going to go through the most changes. This is not going to be an attack anymore. Or at the very least, okay, you may play this card only after you've dealt at least 300 damage to any character on the opposing team before combat on your turn. I think this one might actually be impossible. That's just my assumption right now. I think this is going to be too hard to fulfill. And I was overcompensating for the effect. So you deal a bunch of damage to both the leader and partners on the opposing team. Take an extra turn after this one, because in the game, Shadow uses Chaos Control to stop time, and that's what the Team Blast does. Now, I did limit it, during which you can only play action cards, attacking a character, or attack. Those are the things you can do during Chaos Control. That I'll keep. I don't know about the also dealing damage part. I feel like we need to draw a line somewhere, okay? We gotta keep the blast gauge hard to fill, and only have it, like, you know, take the extra turn. And the new Shadow card does synergize with this a little bit. Next, we have Flower Festival. This one isn't an attack, because in the game, you just get a bunch of, like, items and buffs, and the power cores to level up your characters. You may play this card only after all available characters on your team gain at least 200 rings from any source on a single turn. This one might have to be a little bit harder, because what I'm thinking is that rings are going to be kind of easy to get, or else the games would last like 30 seconds. So Flower Festival. Draw 7 cards. For every item card drawn this way, you get 1 d4 action points. These points are not reset at the beginning of your turn, and you also gain +1 max action points. That's like when your turn starts, you always reset with 5. Now you reset with 6, and so on and so on. That's very simple. Chaotix Recital. This one is sick, because this is about the... Like, this is the most direct translation out of any of these Team Blasts. Alright, for the gauge, it's kind of like, this one's a stretch. I had to think of a new, like, requirement. You may play this card only after you've drawn at least 7 cards in one turn. But the actual ability, you deal a bunch of damage to all targets on the opposing team. At the end of combat, all characters on your team gain +100 rings for every target defeated. This is literally how it works in the game. And then after that, you just have the full arts, because I made these specifically for the video. I think they're pretty cool. And I love that the people love Knuckles. The people adore Knuckles. And I do too. This goes hard. Anyway. Yeah, that's about it. That's all the cards I designed. Now we're going to move on to the next section. So all of that was for the original card designs as they were in the video. But since then, I've done my first dev stream, and as part of that stream, I started my first big round of changes, right? So consider this like patch notes. Here's a list of all the most important changes that I felt like writing. I'm putting a lot of effort into simplifying card text and using keywords as much as possible. My philosophy being, if the word is capitalized, that means it's an actual term with a meaning and rules for how it works in a rule book that I'll probably make eventually. This is important for stuff like playing cards or attacking versus dealing damage. If a card says you can attack, that means you do damage, the opponent deals damage back, and you take any related keywords and traits and modifiers into account. If a card says deal damage, you just deal the base damage and that's it. Like, that's a big difference to leave up to the player interpreting card wording correctly, so we just want to minimize confusion. Action points has been shortened to AP, so it's harder to confuse with action cards. And the reason I didn't just change the name is because I'm a Sonic fan loyal to the bit. In this house, we bind everything to action. Overall, we've buffed ring counts across the board, but this is one of those things that really needs like a dedicated playtest to actually get a good idea of where things stand, you know? A handful of abilities have been reworded and reworked. And most importantly, I actually know what parry does now. Oh my god, you have no idea how much this has tormented me. So when I was originally designing the cards, I actually did know what parry was for. I had this really cool idea, but I listened to the siren song. I had no wax to put in my ears, I had no men to tie me to the mast. I listened to the demon in my head that is ADHD. And I listened to it when it suggested, oh, you don't have to write it down. You'll totally remember this, you know? Just go to bed. Go to bed and you'll remember it in the morning. I did not remember it in the morning. So after that, I was just left scrounging around for any, like, semblance of an idea of what parry might be able to do. And what I settled on by the time I finished the original video was something along the lines of, if a character with parry is targeted by like a damaging action or ability or wisp or what have you, you'd be able to spend an action point and then reflect the damage. But that was never really satisfying to me. Until that stream where I suddenly was blessed by God giving me the idea for what parry should do. When a character with parry is targeted by something, it then deals damage to the opposing leader. Technically, we're working with a very loose definition of what parry actually means. This is not what parry means. This is, if anything, this is just the vibe, the essence, just a small fraction of what parry actually means. This is closer to something like, I don't know, riposte or something. But parry is the cooler word, so we will be calling it that. I've also decided that the card type designs need to be a lot more distinct. You know, I gotta put some more sauce on them. I was onto something with Wisps. I really like Wisps. They're my favorite card designs aside from the characters. And since this is what our decks are going to be made out of instead of like the really cool character card frames, we need them to stand out. And we also need them to be easy to read and look good. You know, we want them to be recognizable as distinct card types. Aside from that, we have a bunch of small changes that I don't really feel like writing into the script right now, so here you go. If future me decides to put in the effort, go ahead and pause the video and read the words on screen that are definitely there. I think. So I'm sure it comes as no surprise that a lot of the comments are people wanting to play this game, with some suggesting to either put it on Tabletop Simulator or to give them the card images so that they could do it themselves. And I gotta tell you, it's really nice to know that so many people also want to play this game, and luckily I actually do know how to potentially make it happen. Here's a fun fact. The reason I made that video in the first place, aside from the talent show, is because I was inspired by another series on YouTube by someone making a card game. Only for them, it was making a faithful adaptation of Card Wars from Adventure Time. Let me tell you, this is a fantastic series and you should absolutely give it a watch if you're into this kind of thing. I would highly recommend. Anyway, in that series, he uses Tabletop Simulator to both prototype the game as well as, you know, eventually release it for other people to play. So, now that I was shown how it could be done, then I see absolutely no reason to not try it out for myself. Well, except for one. I don't have the game, which is what I would be saying had I not won in my category. And with winning comes prizes. Originally, I was gonna ask for like the magic cards because I thought it'd be funny and also I want them. But then I decided I would be an absolute fool to ignore the very stars of fate aligning themselves so the Gooners and Rautists of past, present, and future could combine and bestow their spirit power onto me, the guy with a neat trading card game idea. That's right, brother, you better believe I'm gonna do my best to learn how the hell this game works so that one day I may be able to actually play this game to see if it's even good. Oh, and you guys will also get to play it too, I guess. But for now, the main overarching goal is to make a full set for a card game that works, and hopefully one that can actually support interesting and varied deck building, which means balance, and I don't really want to think about that right now. But let me be real with you. As of right now, I don't know how high the interest in this is. For all I know, I took too long to make the sequel and I missed the algorithm bus. But there's nothing stopping me from waiting for the next one, or even better, if it never comes at all, then I just start walking, brother, like Luffy from One Piece. I'm just a little guy with a dream moving in a single direction, and sometimes I meet someone and they think I'm cool enough to join. Except, you know, maybe we can do without the incomprehensible amounts of trauma. Wait, oh god, I did the thing again. Keyboard spamming is just a habit and I can't stop. As I continue to work on this, I continue to come up with random ideas for cards. They keep coming. I have a whole list of them that I've collected as I've been working on this. And also for you watching, if you have any ideas for cards as we go along this journey together, I'd love to hear them. I'd love for this to be like a collaborative thing. I just think that's fun. I will now proceed to speed run through this list of card ideas that I have. If I had credits to roll, this is the part where I'd have that on screen, you know, or if I had like patrons or members or Ko-Fi supporters, I'd put their names here. But I'll be damned if I put that kind of pressure on myself to consistently make content worth paying for. Cause let me be perfectly, absolutely crystal fucking clear. It's not. Alright, let's see here. So before I get into like all the new ideas that I've had while making this video, one of the oldest ideas I had before even making the first video was that the Rouge card involves drawing from the opponent's deck. And in my notes here I said I think that'd be funny. Anyway, now we're gonna move on. I'm gonna start reading the ideas I've made while making this video. The shield cards block a single instance of damage. If it's the elemental ones, then they have a bonus effect. Lightning shield lets you draw a card. Maybe one of the shields gives you parry. Maybe there's just a card that gives you parry. Add in a dice, but lowering its size. Items and actions can often do similar stuff, but actions are always temporary, and items are constant, or at least have abilities you can use like actions, and thus are temporary. Action card that changes the target of damage to any target, so you can roll, decide if you like the roll, and then use that card to redirect. Item that lowers damage of cards you play to target your own team members. Team Blast, where you draw a card for every team member and partner on your team, and it's like a Goku Spirit Bomb situation. Permanent cards with activated abilities can be activated during combat like an action, and maybe some have an effect so powerful that they can only be used once per character, or maybe work off of charges and then go to the discard pile. Trap cards that go on the bench face down, maybe something like Stealth Rock that deals damage to team members being tagged in. Cards that are variations of Chaos Control with different effects that fail to do this right before hands are thrown to affect the fight. One is to clear both characters of any buffs and enhancements and effects before dealing their clean damage. Another stops combat entirely. Oh my god, a Chaos Control card type that can only be played right before damage is dealt? Question mark? I actually wrote this in my notes. It costs 5 AP and you also need a Chaos Emerald in play to sacrifice. Card that gives Sluggish but you get -1 to the roll. Card that lets characters with Sluggish roll their damage +1 dice, and they can pick the dice that succeeds the saving throw and must use the others for damage, or maybe sacrificing a damage dice if they're different sizes. Stage card that has a bench slot that players can fight over. Here's why I have ideas for stage cards. Alright, so stage cards are like stadiums in Pokemon, alright? You can only have one on the field for both players, and they have effects that affect both players. Okay, so the funniest one is I have one for Casino Night, okay? And it's basically, once per turn, you can pay to start gambling. And you roll 2 6-sided dice, and you gain action points based on the difference between the 2 numbers you roll, right? So you can never get higher than 5 action points. Because you roll a 6 and you roll a 1, 6 minus 1 is 5, it's math. But if you roll a 7, your turn immediately ends. It's literally just playing craps. Okay. Then we have a Green Forest stage card, Sonic Adventure 2 reference. It starts a timer, and at the end of that timer, the game ends, because it blows up. Another idea I have here is calling the stack the card chain, or even better, just call it a QTE, or even better, call it a QCE, a quick card event. Action card or consumable item card that lets you use the tag-in cost of a team member being tagged out. Like if Tails is the leader and you want to swap to Knuckles, you can play the card to let you play. You can play the card to let you pay Tails' 2 AP cost instead of Knuckles' 4 AP cost. Taking damage and losing rings are different effects, important for any potential cards that require a ring cost. Item Badnik card type. I had an idea here for factions, because most card games have factions. I didn't really know how you could do factions in this, but one idea I have is that there are 4 factions based on the teams from Sonic Heroes. Maybe there will be 5 if I can come up with a name for the villain one. We have Team Hero. Hero cards will focus on direct damage and team interaction. Dark will be counterplay and sacrificial, so like the counterplay from Blue and the sacrificial aspect of Black in Magic. Rose will be support and control, and Chaotix will be metagaming and resource manipulation, so like the annoying part of Blue that isn't the counterplay. The cards you can put in your deck depend on the characters you choose for your team, so they'll each have like a tag for that. That's still in ideation. I don't know about that one. Keep up the momentum card that either gives you AP or gives a discount if you did a certain amount of damage last turn, and it works like an enchantment. Item card type box looks like the item box with the monitor. That's a formatting idea. If we do the team faction thing, then there needs to be incentive to have multiple characters of the same faction. What if you got bonus AP per turn based on synergies, +1 AP per turn if 2 characters match, +2 AP per turn if all 3 match? We have an Emerald, a striker card that gets stronger as it fights, because, Sonic Battle. A Team Hero card where your leader gets a damage dice from the other 2 team members. Relic subtype for items. This is important for Chaos Emeralds and stuff. I had a bunch of ideas here for a potential, like, how would Supersonic work? So first we have a Supersonic character card. Main ability is that it gets shuffled into the deck. When you have all 7 Chaos Emeralds on the field, you can replace a Sonic card with it, loses health every turn, and turns back to Sonic when 0. Or, Chaos Emerald cards each have a different ability and an action point and bench cost. They need to be allocated in a way that equals 7, but you basically need to fill the bench with only Chaos Emerald cards. The main idea I'm thinking is that they give you resources like action points, but only in certain situations and uses. This also means that there can be alternate character cards, but I'm thinking only one of each can go into a deck. We'd have to take into account role swapping. The Chaos Emeralds can be our Exodia, have an action card with the super form. You win the game effect, like an alternate win condition. That only works if you are in possession of all 7 Chaos Emeralds, and only 1 Chaos Emerald color can be on the field at any given point, meaning you might have to try and steal them from the opponent so that you have all 7. The strategy is super risky, and you basically need to go all in to ensure you can get all 7 and even have them on your bench in the first place. Maybe there's a Chaos Emerald for every card type. There is not a single period in that note.